Submission and Extremism, a historical look at radical Islamic ideologies. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we take a deep dive into one of the most controversial and often misunderstood topics in global history: the radical ideologies that have emerged under the banner of Islam. Our aim is not to condemn the Islamic faith or its peaceful followers, who number over 1 billion around the world, but rather to explore how certain militant ideologies have co-opted religious language to justify violence, conquest, and coercion. By examining both historical precedents and modern movements, we will shed light on extremist interpretations that advocate submission through conversion, subjugation, or death. These are uncomfortable truths, but understanding them is vital if we are to have informed discussions about education, policy, and freedom in the West. As always, we ask that you leave your thoughts respectfully in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and check the description below for our sources and a link to our Etsy shop. Radical ideologies in context. Throughout history, radical interpretations of Islam have emerged during times of political crisis, foreign invasion, and cultural upheaval. These ideologies tend to flourish when institutions are weak and grievances go unaddressed. Among the most notable are Salafi-Jihadism. This movement seeks to purify Islam by returning to the practices of the Prophet Muhammad and his earliest followers, but it does so through violent means. The most notorious Salafi-Jihadist groups are Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, ISIS. Their ideology is rooted in the writings of medieval cleric Ibn Taymiyyah and 20th century Egyptian theorist Sayyid Qutb. Sayyid Qutb wrote, "Society is living in a state of ignorance similar to that before Islam, Jahiliyyah. It must be overthrown." From Milestones, 1964. Takfirism. This doctrine permits declaring other Muslims to be unbelievers, kuffar, thereby legitimizing violence against them. ISIS used Takfirism to justify brutal campaigns against Shia Muslims, Yazidis, and even Sunnis who rejected their rule. The Qur'an verse often cited in this context is 5:44. "He who does not rule by what Allah has revealed, they are the disbelievers." Takfirism represents a dangerous abuse of theology, where any ideological dissent can become a death sentence. Historical practices of submission. The notion of submission within Islamic empires historically followed a triadic pattern: convert, pay jizya, or face war. This was not a universal policy across all Muslim rulers, but it was a recurring practice rooted in classical jurisprudence. The Qur'an, Surah 9:29, states, "Fight those who do not believe in Allah or the Last Day, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued." In many Islamic empires, particularly under the Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates, non-Muslims were granted the status of dhimmis, protected people, if they paid the jizya tax. While this offered some protection, it also institutionalized inequality. Historian Bat-Yeor writes, "The dhimmi status institutionalized inequality, forcing conquered peoples to submit physically, economically, and spiritually." The dhimmi, 1985. However, not all scholars agree. Mark R. Cohen, in Under Crescent and Cross, argues that compared to medieval Christian Europe, many Jewish and Christian communities found relative safety under Islamic rule. Yet the cost of this protection was permanent second-class status and submission. Khomeinism and political Islam. Not all radical Islamic ideologies are Sunni. The Shia branch of Islam has its own revolutionary strain in the form of Khomeinism. After the Iranian Revolution of 1979, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini established a theocracy under the principle of Velayat-e-Faqih, guardianship of the Islamic jurist. This ideology merged theology with totalitarian politics. The result was a state where clerics wielded supreme power, dissent was silenced, and Islamic law became law of the land. Khomeini declared, "Islam is inherently political, and the separation of religion and politics is a Western construct." Groups like Hezbollah, founded with Iranian backing in Lebanon, follow this ideology and use religion to justify both local control and regional warfare. The legacy of extremism in the West. Today, extremist Islamic ideologies have found footholds in the West. While the majority of Muslims in Western societies reject violence and support liberal democracy, certain enclaves and online platforms have become incubators for radical beliefs. Thinkers like Ayaan Hirsi Ali have warned, "There is a kind of intellectual apologetics that refuses to confront the very real problem of Islamic extremism." Heretic, 2015. Some educational institutions have come under fire for presenting Islamist thinkers like Sayyid Qutb uncritically. Meanwhile, some Western cities report growing concerns about parallel legal systems, honor violence, and anti-assimilation ideologies. Governments face a difficult balance, ensuring freedom of religion while protecting civil liberties from illiberal interpretations of religious law. Responsible education and moving forward. We must resist the urge to generalize or demonize. The vast majority of Muslims are peaceful, spiritual people who detest violence. But we must not ignore how extremist ideologies abuse the concept of submission to enforce tyranny. Understanding the historical and theological roots of these doctrines helps us build better policies, better education, and stronger communities. We need open discussion, honest inquiry, and intellectual courage. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, often attributed to Thomas Jefferson. Thanks for joining us in this look at the history and consequences of radical Islamic ideologies. If you found value in this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and consider sharing it with friends and colleagues. Be on the lookout for our next video, which will explain Sharia law and its effects in Western countries. We invite you to leave a respectful comment below with your thoughts, personal experiences, or additional sources. And finally, check the description below for our Etsy store, where you can find handmade, history-themed gifts, and for a full list of citations and readings used in today's episode. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and stay free.
you.